The Shahab-3 is a medium-range ballistic missile derived from the North Korean Nodong design, with Iranian modifications developed and refined over roughly 2 decades. Its range sits between 1,300 and 2,000 kilometers depending on the variant and payload configuration, which puts targets across the Middle East, portions of Central Asia, and parts of southern Europe within reach from fixed or mobile launch positions inside Iranian territory. The warhead capacity runs to approximately 1,000 kilograms, and the system has been deployed in meaningful numbers with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Aerospace Force as a primary strike asset. Guidance is inertial with reported GPS augmentation in later variants, though its circular error probable is measured in hundreds of meters rather than tens, which means it is not a precision weapon by modern standards. It is a mass delivery tool, not a surgical one. The Shahab-3 would most likely be employed in saturation strikes against fixed infrastructure, military airfields, port facilities, command nodes, or energy infrastructure are the realistic target categories. Because its accuracy is limited, the operational logic depends on volume and psychological effect rather than precision destruction. Iran has maintained mobile launcher support for the Shahab-3 through the Transporter Erector launcher fleet, which allows dispersal across the country prior to a conflict and complicates targeting by opposing forces attempting preemptive strikes. The limitation is straightforward. A liquid-fueled system requires fueling at or near launch, which extends preparation time and creates a vulnerability window. Any adversary with persistent surveillance and rapid strike capability can exploit that window. The Shahab-3 is not a first strike weapon in an environment where the adversary has functioning intelligence and strike platforms on alert. The Sejil is Iran's domestically developed solid-fuel medium-range ballistic missile, and the shift from liquid to solid propellant is operationally significant in ways that directly address the Shahab-3's primary weakness. A solid-fuel missile can be stored in a ready-to-launch state and moved without the fueling process that exposes liquid fuel systems to pre-launch targeting. The Sejil carries a reported range of approximately 2,000 kilometers, placing it in a similar class to the Shahab-3 in terms of reach, but with meaningfully faster launch preparation timelines. It is a two-stage design, and Iran has publicly displayed it at multiple military parades across different years, indicating it is not an experimental prototype but a deployed or near-deployed capability. The guidance package is believed to be similar to the Shahab family, placing accuracy in the CEP range of several hundred meters. The operational value of the Sejil is in survivability and response speed. Because it can be dispersed across the country, moved through Iran's road network, and held at readiness without the logistical tail that liquid fuel systems require, it is harder to neutralize on the ground before launch. In a scenario where Iran absorbs an initial strike and attempts to generate a retaliatory salvo, the Sejil provides a more resilient component of that second strike capability than liquid fuel alternatives. Its constraint is that solid fuel domestic production capacity is less certain than that of the Shahab family, meaning inventory depth may be more limited. Accuracy limitations still apply. Against hardened military installations, a CEP measured in hundreds of meters means many missiles are needed to achieve effects that a precision system could achieve with far fewer. The Fateh 110 is a short-range ballistic missile with a range of approximately 300 kilometers and a reported CEP significantly tighter than the larger ballistic systems in the Iranian inventory. Multiple variants exist, with some reporting accuracy figures in the range of single-digit to low double-digit meters for the most advanced versions. Though independent verification of those figures is difficult, the Fateh 110 uses solid fuel, making it operationally responsive, and it has been produced in substantial numbers and proliferated to proxy forces including Hezbollah in Lebanon. This proliferation is itself a strategic feature rather than an afterthought, as it extends Iran's strike reach without committing Iranian-based launchers. Iran has used the Fateh family as the foundation for several derivative designs, and it forms one of the more credible near-precision strike systems in the Iranian arsenal against targets within its 300-kilometer envelope. Against targets in neighboring countries, military staging areas, or forward operating locations within range, the Fateh 110 functions as something closer to a tactical precision weapon than the Shahab or Sejil. Radar installations, command posts, air defense nodes, or port infrastructure at ranges up to 300 kilometers are realistic target sets where accuracy at this level translates to meaningful damage probability. Its limitation is range, which confines its employment to adjacent or near-adjacent adversaries and geographic targets. It does not threaten assets well inside the continental territory of a major distant power, but it directly threatens forward-deployed forces, partner nation military infrastructure, and regional allies across the Gulf, Iraq, and the Levant within its operational radius. The Khorramshahr is a medium-range ballistic missile that represents one of Iran's more capable ballistic developments in terms of range and payload flexibility. Reported range figures reach approximately 2,000 kilometers. And unlike many Iranian ballistic systems, the Khorramshahr is believed to carry a maneuverable re-entry vehicle, a feature that meaningfully complicates intercept attempts by terminal phase missile defense systems. A maneuverable warhead does not follow a purely ballistic trajectory in the final phase of flight, which reduces the predictability that terminal defense radars and interceptors rely on for fire control solutions. Whether the Iranian maneuvering RV is sophisticated enough to consistently defeat modern terminal defense layers is not definitively established, but the capability as a design feature is a qualitative step beyond the Shahab and Sejil. The Khorramshahr has been displayed publicly, but its production numbers and operational readiness are not firmly established in open-source reporting. If deployed in meaningful quantities, it adds a different problem set for adversary missile defense planners who already face saturation pressure from the larger Iranian ballistic missile force. Defending against a large incoming salvo with mixed trajectories, some from systems with maneuvering warheads and some without, strains, interceptor, allocation logic, and fire control decision timelines. The missile's liquid fuel propulsion reportedly creates some of the same pre-launch vulnerability issues seen with the Shahab 3, though the extent of that vulnerability depends on basing infrastructure and warning indicators available to adversaries. The Sumar is Iran's domestically produced land attack cruise missile, derived from the Soviet Kh-55 design, examples of which Iran reportedly acquired through illicit procurement channels in the early 2000s. As a cruise missile rather than a ballistic system, the Sumar flies a low-altitude terrain-following profile and is far harder to detect and track on radar than a ballistic missile following a high-arc trajectory. Reported range figures vary, with some assessments placing it above 2,000 kilometers, which, if accurate, would give Iran a standoff land attack cruise missile capability comparable in reach to the ballistic systems, but with a fundamentally different flight profile and detection challenge set. Guidance is believed to combine inertial navigation with terrain-following systems based on the Kh-55 architecture, though how much the Iranian derivation has improved or degraded this is unclear from open sources. The Sumar's operational role is distinct from the ballistic missile force. Where ballistic missiles arrive at high speed after a brief flight and are dealt with in the terminal phase, a cruise missile flying at low altitude over complex terrain imposes different demands on adversary, air defense radar coverage, and intercept timing. A defended target that has solved the ballistic threat problem through interceptor batteries may still face exposure from cruise missiles flying below or around radar coverage. The limitation is that cruise missiles are significantly slower than ballistic systems and can be engaged by capable fighter aircraft and layered air defense if detected early. Iran's Sumar likely functions best as a component of a mixed attack package, complementing ballistic trajectories with low-altitude profiles to split adversary defensive responses. Production scale and inventory depth remain unclear. The Noor is Iran's domestically produced anti-ship cruise missile, derived from the Chinese C-802 and produced in Iran under license with local modifications. It is a sea-skimming missile with an active radar seeker in the terminal phase, a turbojet propulsion system, and a range reported at approximately 170 to 200 kilometers. It has been integrated with truck-mounted coastal defense batteries deployed along the Iranian coastline, particularly near the Strait of Hormuz and throughout the broader Persian Gulf coastal zone. The Noor was used in combat when Hezbollah, which received the system from Iran, struck the Israeli corvette Palm NS Hanet in 2006. That event confirmed the system as operationally functional and demonstrated the consequence of failing to activate shipborne soft-kill countermeasures against an incoming anti-ship missile. In Iranian hands, Noor batteries serve a coastal denial function. Mobile launcher vehicles allow them to be dispersed along the coastline and repositioned to avoid targeting, which complicates suppression of enemy air defense or precision strikes intended to neutralize the battery before it fires. Against surface combatants operating within the missile's engagement envelope, the Noor poses a credible threat to vessels without effective electronic countermeasures or close-in weapon system coverage. The missile's sea-skimming profile limits radar acquisition range from shipboard sensors, reducing response time. Its limitation is range, which does not threaten naval forces operating from the Gulf of Oman or other standoff distances. It is a weapon designed for area denial within a specific geographic zone rather than open ocean anti-access. Saturation of a naval force using multiple simultaneous Noor launches from dispersed coastal positions is the intended employment concept. The Khalij Fars is an anti-ship ballistic missile, a category that carries significant operational implications. It is derived from the Fateh 110 airframe and has been demonstrated against a moving target at sea in Iranian military exercises, which, if representative of operational capability, means it can engage surface vessels on a ballistic trajectory with a guidance package capable of terminal homing on a ship-sized target. So anti-ship ballistic missiles present a fundamentally different intercept problem than cruise missiles. They arrive at high velocity from above, compress reaction time dramatically, and require terminal phase defense systems optimized for that trajectory profile. The Khalij Fars has a reported range of approximately 300 kilometers, covering a substantial portion of the Persian Gulf and Strait of Hormuz approach zones from land-based launchers. A naval force operating within 300 kilometers of the Iranian coastline faces both the sea-skimming threat from Noor batteries and the plunging threat from Khalij Fars batteries simultaneously, which splits defensive resource allocation. Countering a sea skimmer and a ballistic terminal phase attacker at the same time with a single ship's defensive suite is a non-trivial problem. The Khalij Fars' key uncertainty is whether demonstrated test performance against a stationary or slow-moving barge translates to reliable performance against an actively maneuvering combatant using electronic countermeasures and generating as much own-ship noise and movement as possible to defeat terminal guidance. The seeker's ability to reacquire and track a maneuvering target in the terminal phase under adversarial conditions is not publicly verified. The threat is real, but its performance ceiling against a prepared naval opponent is uncertain. The Ghadar-class midget submarines are small diesel-electric vessels with a displacement of approximately 120 tons, built domestically by Iran in meaningful numbers. Classified as midget submarines rather than full-sized boats, they are designed for littoral operations in shallow coastal waters rather than blue water patrol. The Strait of Hormuz and the shallower portions of the Persian Gulf are their intended operational environment. They are typically armed with lightweight torpedoes and have been demonstrated with anti-ship missile capability in some configurations. Their size limits their endurance, crew complement, sensor suite, and weapons load compared to full-size submarines, but those same characteristics make them harder to detect in acoustically complex shallow water environments where full-sized submarine sonar performance is degraded. The Ghadir class operates most effectively as a mine-laying and coastal ambush platform. in the confined geometry of the Persian Gulf or the Strait of Hormuz. Even a small number of submarines capable of credibly threatening surface traffic forces, adversary naval forces to allocate anti-submarine warfare assets, conduct barrier patrols, and accept slower transit speeds and more complex convoy arrangements. This is a force multiplication effect that is disproportionate to the platform's individual capability. The limitation is clear. These boats cannot sustain operations in open ocean, lack the sensor capability to engage beyond close ranges reliably, and are extremely vulnerable once detected by a competent anti-submarine warfare force with maritime patrol aircraft and hull-mounted sonar assets. Their value is in the threat they represent and the defensive response they compel, not necessarily in individual kill probability. The Kilo-class submarines in Iranian service are a different category of platform entirely. Iran operates 3 Project 877 EKM Kilo-class submarines acquired from Russia in the 1990s. Diesel-electric boats displacing approximately 2,350 tons submerged. The Kilo is a capable conventional submarine with a low acoustic signature by diesel-electric standards, an endurance suitable for extended patrols, and a weapons load that includes torpedoes and the capability to fire cruise missiles through the torpedo tubes in some configurations. Iran's 3 Kilos are based at Bandar Abbas and Chabahar, with Chabahar's location on the Gulf of Oman, providing direct access to deeper water outside the Persian Gulf without requiring transit of the Strait of Hormuz under adversary observation. The operational value of the Kilo fleet is primarily in the threat-in-being effect it creates. A confirmed Kilo-class submarine operating in the Gulf of Oman or Northern Arabian Sea forces significant anti-submarine warfare resource commitment from any naval force attempting to establish control of those waters. The boats are old, having entered Iranian service approximately 3 decades ago, and their maintenance history and material readiness are subjects of considerable analytical uncertainty. Iranian access to Russian technical support and spare parts has been inconsistent over time due to sanctions and geopolitical friction, meaning the actual operational readiness rate of all 3 boats simultaneously is not reliably assessed from open sources. If 1 or 2 Kilos are genuinely operational and crewed by practiced crews, they represent a credible threat to surface vessels. If maintenance has degraded their system significantly, they become largely symbolic assets. The IRG Sea Fast Attack craft, specifically the Tandar and Pekap classes, are among the most tactically immediate components of Iran's maritime posture. These are small, high-speed surface vessels, displacing in the range of 10 to 28 tons depending on variant, capable of speeds exceeding 50 knots, and armed with anti-ship missiles, rockets, torpedoes, heavy machine guns, and in some configurations, rocket-propelled grenades. The IRGC Navy operates hundreds of these craft in the Persian Gulf, and their operational concept is swarming, coordinated attacks from multiple vectors using large numbers of individually small and fast platforms to overwhelm point defense systems and saturate the response capacity of defending surface combatants. The Tandar and Pekap are not individually powerful. They are collectively dangerous. A swarm of IRGC fast attack craft approaching a surface combatant from multiple directions simultaneously presents a close-in defense problem that consumes large-caliber ammunition, close-in weapon system engagement capacity, and crew attention simultaneously. Modern surface combatants have close-in weapon systems, decoys, and crew-served weapons capable of defeating multiple small boats. But the saturation concept tests the outer limits of those systems in a confined body of water with limited maneuver room. The fast attack craft are also used for harassment operations, shadowing foreign naval vessels transiting the Gulf in close proximity at high speed to create collision risk and demonstrate IRGC presence and willingness to operate aggressively at close range. Their limitation is range and sea state sensitivity. In heavier seas or at extended distances from their coastal bases, their effectiveness drops. They are a Persian Gulf and Strait of Hormuz weapon, not an open ocean one. The Shahed 136 is a one-way loitering munition, commonly described as a kamikaze drone with a delta wing airframe, a small piston engine, and a shaped charge warhead. Its range is approximately 2,000 kilometers, and it navigates using GPS or an inertial system before terminal impact. The Shahed 136 is cheap by the standards of the systems it is used against, with production cost estimates in the range of tens of thousands of dollars per unit, which is orders of magnitude less than the interceptor missiles used to shoot them down. This asymmetry in unit cost is central to the weapon's strategic logic. If an adversary spends $100,000 or more in interceptor costs to defeat a $20,000 loitering munition and faces hundreds or thousands of such munitions in a salvo, the economics of defense become unsustainable before the economics of offense do. The Shahed 136 has been used extensively in the conflict in Ukraine, supplied by Iran to Russia, and its employment there has produced a substantial body of observed performance data. It is effective against fixed infrastructure, power generation equipment, and targets that lack layered defense. It is vulnerable to electronic warfare, jamming of GPS navigation, and interception by guns, short-range missiles, and even small arms at close range if radar detection occurs early enough. In the Iranian context, mass Shahed 136 employment would likely be directed at fixed military infrastructure, port facilities, energy infrastructure, or forward operating bases where the cumulative effect of many impacts over a sustained period degrades capability even if individual intercepts succeed. Iran has demonstrated the ability to produce these in volume. The production rate and inventory depth are assessments, not confirmed figures. But the trajectory of observed proliferation suggests industrial-scale output. The Mohijer-6 is a multi-role unmanned aerial vehicle that functions as both a reconnaissance platform and a strike asset. It is a twin-boom pusher design with a reported endurance of approximately 12 hours and an operational ceiling around 16,000 to 18,000 feet. It carries electro-optical and infrared sensors for reconnaissance and targeting, and can employ munitions including guided bombs and missiles. The Mohijer-6 has been delivered to Russia and observed in operational use in Ukraine, which confirms its operational functionality in a contested environment against a capable adversary with active air defense. Unlike the Shahed 136, which is a one-way expendable system, the Mohijer-6 is a recoverable platform that can perform persistent surveillance, battle damage assessment, and targeting for other strike systems before employing its own weapons. In the Iranian operational concept, the Mohijer-6 would likely function in coordination with the broader missile and drone strike architecture. It can provide real-time surveillance of a target area, cue missile systems, assess results after impact, and perform its own precision strikes against softer targets within its weapon employment envelope. Its limitation is survivability in a dense air defense environment. It operates at altitudes and speeds that make it detectable and engageable by capable air defense systems and fighter aircraft. It is not a platform designed to penetrate well-defended airspace independently. Its value increases in environments where adversary air defenses have been degraded, so where its altitude keeps it above most small arms and light air defense threats, or where it is used in coordination with saturation attacks that occupy adversary defensive capacity. Against a peer or near-peer air defense force at full strength, the Mohijer-6 is at significant risk. The Bavar 373 is Iran's domestically produced long-range air defense system, explicitly developed to replace the Russian S-300 that Iran was denied for years due to sanctions and international pressure. Iranian officials have claimed engagement ranges of approximately 200 to 300 kilometers against aircraft and over 200 kilometers against ballistic missiles, though independent verification of those figures against representative targets is not available in open sources. The system is a phased-array, radar-guided surface-to-air missile system, and its existence as a domestically produced platform is itself a significant development, as it represents Iran's ability to sustain long-range air defense capability without reliance on Russian hardware. It has been displayed at military parades and formally inducted into service, with Iranian military leadership claiming it exceeds the S-300 in some performance parameters, claims that should be treated analytically with appropriate skepticism. The Bavar 373's operational role is to provide area air defense against aircraft and ballistic missiles over strategically important Iranian territory, including nuclear sites, command infrastructure, and population centers. If the system performs anywhere near claimed specifications, it complicates the threat calculus for any air campaign against Iranian territory by requiring attacking aircraft to operate with full electronic warfare support, anti-radiation missile coverage, and coordination with suppression of enemy air defense packages before striking defended targets. Its limitations include the uncertainty around actual performance, the degree to which Iranian radar and fire control software matches Western or Russian counterpart capabilities developed over decades of operational iteration, and vulnerability to anti-radiation missiles designed to home on radar emissions. A system that must turn on its radar to engage aircraft also reveals its location when doing so. How well the Bavar 373 handles a sophisticated multi-axis electronic warfare and anti-radiation missile attack is not empirically established. The ROD is a mobile medium-range surface-to-air missile system developed domestically by Iran as a lower-tier complement to the longer-range Bavar 373. It is truck-mounted, which provides the mobility that fixed-site installations lack. Its reported engagement range is approximately 50 to 100 kilometers against aircraft targets, placing it in the category of systems designed to defend specific high-value points or military formations rather than providing broad area coverage. The ROD uses a semi-active radar homing guidance approach in at least some of its variants, which requires the fire control radar to illuminate the target through the engagement, creating its own signature management challenge during engagements. It has been displayed publicly and claimed to be in service with Iranian air defense forces, integrated into the broader national air defense network alongside the Bavar 373 and older legacy systems. The ROD provides a layer of engagement capability below the Bavar 373, creating a vertical stack where incoming aircraft must contend with long-range engagements at extended distance and shorter-range engagements as they close to target. Mobile deployment means that suppression of enemy air defense forces cannot eliminate it by targeting fixed positions on pre-planned strike packages alone. Iranian air defense overall is not a homogeneous system. It is a layered network that includes the Bavar 373 for long-range coverage, the ROD for medium coverage, legacy systems at shorter ranges, and anti-aircraft artillery and man-portable air defense systems as the innermost defensive ring. The coherence and integration of that network, specifically how well the radar picture is shared across nodes and how effectively engagements are deconflicted, determines whether the whole is greater than the sum of its parts or whether seams between coverage zones become exploitable gaps. That integration quality is the operationally decisive variable that cannot be confidently assessed from outside the system.